Hey Doug, I still don't have a drummer.
Neither do we.
Yeah, and this is ready, this is recording too.
About 1 minute. The church bells are ringing, so we should be able to go, right? It must be 6. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. We're going to call a special city council meeting on Monday, January 27th. Calling it to order, roll call.
Tom Marlock.
Michelle Adam.
Lloyd Johnson.
Kirby Moyna.
Deb Belter,
Jared Bogey.
Wayne McCormick?
James Monjay.
And we'll go ahead and get started with our city engineer.
All right, well, good evening, Mayor Council. The first item on the agenda this evening is really a discussion topic, and it's relative to the city's assessment policy. There is an assessment policy in place, most recently adopted in 2011. But really the discussion this evening is the city has used it in the past, although it was on the County Road 12 project in approximately 2004. Since then, projects that have been undertaken by the city have not utilized the assessment policy. And on the capital improvement plan, there is a 2021 project identified, and obviously one of the most important parts of a project is identifying the funding sources associated with them. So as staff started having a discussion about that project that's upcoming, I really wanted to have a discussion with council if your vision moving forward is to not assess as the last few projects have been, or if we'd like to consider bringing that back up for a funding source for the project. As you probably know, communities throughout the state either assess or don't assess. Sometimes they have reasons why they do in particular projects and why they don't. So you do have the option to do both because you do have a policy in place. And so with that, I'm going to pause and answer any questions that you might have relative to that.
I'm not sure why we actually had projects that weren't assessed. I don't know if anybody has any information on that.
I never knew we had one either.
Policy?
Yeah.
No, I mean projects that
Why
weren't
not?
assessed.
Oh, okay.
Because I know Buffalo Avenue, I think, was the last one, right?
But I know
Yeah.
that if we don't need it, I don't think we should do it because, you know, years ago, when they built the Rolling Hills out there, well, then they needed a bigger sewer, so we put a bigger sewer pipe through Montrose, and then we built a residence here for that sewer pipe. And in my book, it was mainly for the developer. The developer should have paid for that. I don't think the residents should pay for that. So that's why I think we should just forget about this too, because now we're gonna do a town here. So you're gonna assess the people that live here for the project, when everybody else uses it too.
Well-
I don't think it's fair. I think it ought to stay out of the general fund.
Well, you're not gonna be able to take those kinds of things out of the general fund.
Well,
You're gonna have to
we
bond,
have to bond.
you're gonna have to bond for them, and then everybody pays for it anyway.
Right.
Um,
Instead of a certain few, though, everybody would.
It's pretty specific in terms of what we assess and what we don't assess. I mean, if you're talking about a total street replacement, curb and gutter added and all that, then we assess for it. But if it's like resurfacing, you know, what we have out here on First Street, that's not going to be assessed. That doesn't fall into the category. And then it specifically states that it's a 70-30, the city pays 70% anyway, 30% is assessed, and then you can't assess any more than the increased value of the property to the property owner. So I think it's a pretty foolproof method of doing that and not necessarily hitting everybody in the community with a huge bond. You know, at least a piece of it's being picked up. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jared.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. There, only a portion of the project cost is assessed to the benefiting property. The remaining is taken care of by the city, which is ultimately all the other residents in town, correct?
Is the county picking up any of the bill for the improvements around here, because it's technically a county road?
That would have to be discussed as part of the project process with Wright County, but typically, the county does have a cost share policy. It's definitely not 100% as we might hope, but they have a cost share policy, but on all city-owned streets, only city streets, then at that point it would be 100% city.
Right. Most of it, though, that's going to be done, is it not the county road? Straight down here and straight down there all the way to 12, that's all county, right?
Right. And then they're turning it back over.
Yeah, and they're gonna give it to the city afterwards.
We're doing Third Street down around Dakota,
Yep.
that's ours, and then I'd like to throw in Center North.
It's nice to have an assessment policy in place, because then when it comes time to do your public meetings and to get the public involved when you're going to do these improvements, you have it in writing. This is how it's going to be done, and it makes the whole process, in my opinion, I've been through it a lot easier. Otherwise, you don't have something to lean on, and you could be all over the place with it.
In your experience, I mean, do you find that most cities assess?
I would say that in my experience, it's been probably 60-40, 60% probably assess, 40 don't. Ultimately, there's arguments both ways about why or why not. The cities that don't assess, they enjoy the fact that they don't have public hearings where they have to defend their policy. The cities that do assess have done it historically for a very long time, and they feel that they owe it to the other residents in the community to assess them as well, because everybody else was assessed previously. So you're in a unique situation here where ultimately you're making a decision that you probably want to carry through moving forward. So I know I probably didn't really answer your question that directly, but the cities that don't, they enjoy not, and the cities that do, it's just another funding component. And we can certainly set the process up so that assessments are eligible. There's a certain statute that we must follow with notifications and things of that nature. So we could set the process up, and then ultimately, council doesn't have to decide tonight, but this is why we wanted to bring it before you so that you could think about it and discuss it. And so when we do initiate that process, when you see certain things happening, like mail notices to every affected property owner and things like that, you do have the opportunity to move forward with assessments if you'd like.
I was just at a League of Minnesota Cities conference, and knowing this was coming up, I started asking various people. And I would have you guess that about 75% of the people I talk to do assess.
Okay.
So
We just had the two projects, I believe, that we did not assess, which was the Fieldcrest area, we didn't do that, and then Highway 25, correct?
I can't comment on that because I don't know, and unfortunately, Ms. Manson's out in the office. I can't
25,
say.
though, that's a state highway, they more or less would have taken care of that, we're only taking care of
Yeah.
walking path, and that's taken care of comparatively still.
Right.
Do you know what the estimated amount for the project of all the resurfacing and curb and gutter is gonna be?
For 2021, I believe it's in the CIP for 4-point-some million, approximately in that neighborhood, between 4 and 5. I don't have the exact number off my top of my head.
I got it here.
4 or 5 million.
Yeah, it's right at about 4 million in the 2017 CIP.
Is there any estimate on what the county would end up paying? Because then that would affect the rest of it too, and because then whatever the county pays, and we would pay 70% of what's left, and then 30% of whatever else was left would get kicked back to the residents, right?
Yes.
Is there any indication of how much they were going to give to do any of that?
No, the county, I mean, this project is in such an infant stage right now that it hasn't even really been investigated, other than the fact that it's in the CIP. But knowing that funding is a very important component, as staff brings more additional information to council, we wanted to see whether or not it should include assessments or shouldn't, and kind of the direction or the feeling that I'm getting tonight is let's leave it open for that option, and then see where it goes, if that's correct.
Yeah, I mean, I'd personally like to just see some more numbers on it, especially with the county piece and how much they would put towards it, or historically how much they've given to about that much road to do improvements before making that choice. I don't know what everybody else thinks, but I mean, I'd like to see the numbers.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, we all
Jared, so the current assessment policy that we have, do we need to make amendments to that, or is it?
I don't think at this point. I think ultimately there's some good discussion as to whether or not we should consider assessments. And since we are going to consider them as basically the next step for that process in order to get council more information, is we'll have you authorize a feasibility report for that at a later meeting. And then we can start having conversations with Wright County, and we'll review the assessment policy, make sure that 30% threshold is still reasonable, because as you did mention, it has to be a benefit to the property, and we'll want to take a close look at that too. So at this point, I don't think any amendments are necessary.
And we have to look at it past this one,
Yes.
2021 project, you know.
Yeah.
So,
And now, if you have an assessment on there and you sell your property, then does that seller have to pay that assessment on?
Typically, what I've seen with assessments on properties is that is between the seller and the buyer to determine, but once the property changes hands, the assessment must be paid in full, has been my experience.
Okay. Any other discussion? No?
There was something in here about over age 65 too, can't find that page right now, but what was that in regards to?
Yeah, so the policy does provide for a deferred assessment option. And there's an age requirement as well as an income requirement. Those are typically evaluated at the assessment hearing. A resident can apply for a deferred assessment. At that point, they would need to talk to Deb and Wendy to find out, to make sure that they meet those specific requirements in the for that deferment.
I think part of the reason why too you do assess some properties is because it does make improvements to their property. Like right now, these properties don't have curb and gutter, and we're gonna be putting in curb and gutter, and it makes improvements to the property, so. Okay, so, you and I will just keep in touch about when we should bring this up again and talk about it, or?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
All right. Capital improvement plan?
All right, the second item this evening is regarding the city's capital improvement plan. Ultimately, I know you guys are all familiar with your CIP. It identifies improvements in future years similar to the project that we were just talking about. The last update was completed in 2017. So as staff discussed the CIP, we also noted that a lot of the roadways within town are approaching that 20-year window, and that's typically the amount of time where that bituminous surface, the pavement itself, the road isn't necessarily bad, but the pavement surface itself is approaching its useful life. So as we looked at that, we determined or noted that a pavement management plan hasn't ever been put together for the city. Ultimately, we've had projects on the CIP which are more intense, like the complete reconstructs, the sewer and water replacement, things of that nature. But the pavements themselves haven't been really incorporated into a plan, if you will. And so that's what the item is this evening. We talked to staff about the CIP, but then we also noted that there are some pavements within town that aren't currently planned in the CIP for total reconstruction or improvement that are definitely going to need some attention. And ultimately, the goal of both the CIP and the pavement management plan is to identify the need, the associated cost with it, and then program it so that it fits in with the city's budget, so that you don't see enormous spikes in your budget as you move forward. So that's ultimately the discussion. So with that, staff is ultimately requesting permission to update the CIP and complete a pavement management plan so that we can bring it back to you and you can use it for your budgeting purposes.
I don't see how we're gonna budget
Without a plan.
It's been difficult. When Mr. McCormick, Ms. Manson, and I do the budgeting, it's been difficult because we have a lot of streets, and correct me if I'm wrong, that need work. And we need to identify those and we need to prioritize them because the management plan will do that as well. It will prioritize the improvements.
You guys will all work on that?
If you are okay with it, you would need to make a motion to let them move forward with that.
Okay. Is there a motion then?
I'll make motion to update the capital improvement plan to include pavement management.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, Kirby?
Yes.
I'll vote aye. Tom?
Aye.
Lloyd?
No.
Motion passes 3-1. All right, moving forward to the city attorney. I guess this is you. Tom,
Pardon?
did you have the, we're on city attorney?
Yeah, not the billing details part of it, but, I think there was some discussion in the past, James, about attending council meetings and things. I don't know what the plan was. It seemed like I came in when Mark was leaving and Amy was coming in. It seemed that Amy attended all the
But what we
council
had,
meetings.
when Mr. Brokaw was here, when I started, he had an understanding with me. It wasn't my idea, it was his idea. And Ms. Shutt had the same thing, that they would look at the agenda, and if there was not anything on there that they needed to be at the meeting, they would contact me and they would say, do you really think I need to be there? And I would say no, but if there were items on there, I did it with both Matt and with Amy, and I think I've done it with you too. We've talked about them, and I've asked for direction on any questions that might come up. So it's up to you. I know that at your former attorney firm that you had, they paid a retainer. I tried to figure that out today, and I saw it on the bills, but I couldn't figure it out because then they would deduct certain things from it. I know we don't pay a retainer for Campbell Knutson, we pay by the hour. So the reason it was on there, some of you have had some concerns about the city attorney not being here at every meeting, so I just wanted you to discuss it and see what your thoughts were and what you wanted to happen.
Yeah, previously when we did have Eckberg Glamours, we had a flat, $2,500. $2,500 flat fee. So then they would come to every meeting. Now when we switched over to Campbell Knudsen, it was like she said, if they weren't on the agenda, they didn't need to come here. So they would always keep in contact with Deb or whoever it was at the time, so.
Yeah, I guess as long as there's a phone call that happens prior to the meeting to determine whether your presence is required or not. I'm good with that.
We've had that understanding that if Deb thinks there's some reason for me at the meeting, she'll let me know and I'll come. And I also always review the agenda items before the meetings. I can affirmatively make a phone call every week or an email to Deb to see if that's what.
It would basically be once a month for the council meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
Prior.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you guys are keeping in contact and any questions Deb has is getting answered.
Well, I just want to make sure, because I know, Councilmember Johnson, you had some concerns that they're not at the meeting, so that's, I think, what I'm looking for tonight, is do you want him to be at every meeting, or do you want to continue with the process that we've been following?
I'm okay with the process you're following now.
As long as there's notification for him not coming, or if Deb says don't come, that as long as we know he's not gonna be here ahead of time.
Right.
And I definitely, if there's something that I think might be a little over my head, I'll definitely make sure that James is here, so.
And I do have the availability to be here whenever I'm needed.
Okay.
Now I remember what the billing detail thing was. I knew it would come to me. When I look at the billing statement, it'll say like conversation with councilman. Is it possible to put conversation with whom, the actual name of the person that you?
Or initials, or,
We can do that.
Okay, yeah, because that's great, because we don't know who's talking to you all the time, so.
Yes, we can certainly do that.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that was easy.
Is there any more detail on the billing that you need?
I don't think so. I think the billing is okay, right? I mean, I haven't heard Wendy say anything.
Yeah, next time you do the financial review, when you two do the financial review, why don't you look at those in particular? Ask Ms. Vance if you can look at them in particular. And James, I can just always contact you, right, and say they'd like to see more detail here, more detail there, if there's something else down the line.
Certainly.
Okay.
When you talk about the council member, it used to be, sadly, there was a policy in place that the council members had to go through Deb or our city administrator before we reached out to the attorneys, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we just need to follow that.
So, but I still think that when there's a conversation, it needs to be.
Identify who it is, yeah. Yeah, okay.
And that person will pay for it.
Pardon?
That person will pay for it.
Don't worry, son.
I mean, you know, because you could call them about some trivial thing, and I'll call them about something important, and then, you know.
Well, then your name would be on it, so would mine.
Yeah,
We
so-
would have to
Then there's a
answer,
difference.
we would have to answer for that.
Yeah.
I don't arbitrarily call the attorneys.
Well, I don't know, not what I heard, but that's.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you hear something
Well,
different?
there's two attorneys that we have. We have James as our everyday attorney, and then there's Soren, who's our employment attorney, who Tom and I keep in contact with.
Yeah, if you're gonna accuse me of something, you better have some facts to back it up.
So moving forward, anything other, Tom?
Yes, I was wondering, Wayne, when we have a council meeting, is it possible for you to do a public works report at the council meeting? Because, you know, we hear so much from Facebook and people making comments on the next door thing and all that stuff. And, you know, we don't know if things were addressed, things weren't addressed, we don't know what's going on. So if you had an opportunity to do a report at a council meeting and say, okay, these are the handful of things we addressed this month, and here's how they were resolved, then the audience looking at the video can understand that Public Works is on top of these things and not, we won't hear the rumors about they're letting things slide and,
Right.
you know.
I'm not on any of those websites, so to know what you're talking about.
I'm not either, but I hear about it.
I can inform you.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it, this whole Facebook and all these other, social media stuff, it would require a full-time person to monitor all
They should
that.
just come to us direct instead of all
Pardon?
over face. They should come to me direct.
Yeah, but they
Instead of going all
don't.
over
They
Facebook.
don't. They don't, so. And the other thing, since you do have responsibility for Parks and Rec, I was wondering why you don't attend Parks and Rec, because you get a situation when you're not there, people can accuse you of, being the son of Satan, and you have no way of defending yourself. This way, if you go maybe quarterly to
Yeah,
a,
that's what we talked about.
That's what we're doing.
oh,
Yeah.
They just talked to me about that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not a problem.
oh,
When last, November, December, something like that, we had talked about bringing in Wayne quarterly, because now we have a new group too. So back in January, it's still January. So our first meeting in January, I had Jess give our Parks and Trails plan and our capital improvement plan to the new people to look it over. And then we'll be bringing in Wayne probably in March, and then start
yeah,
quarterly.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's a good idea.
yep.
That'll work.
Cool.
All right, we're done with all that. Now it's up to you guys. So if y'all want to come up, sit in your designated areas.
Are we?
Are we gonna close this? Do we need to close this?
James, is it okay if we start early, because I only let them know that interviews would be at 7, this meeting was posted to be at 6, so it's okay if we start interviews early?
If the entire meeting was posted at 6, then
Probably,
yeah,
it seems like the rest of the time.
Yes.
it makes sense to
Okay.
get started.
So we can continue on, right?
Correct.
Yes, because the meeting was, okay.
Okay,
Perfect, come on up.
you're next to Nicole. Thank you.
First, I want to say thank you all for coming and putting an interest into the position that we have open. Basically, what we're going to do is we're just going to start off with all of you, start doing interview questions. We're going to look at your applications. But unfortunately, we don't have an application from one of you, which is Brew. We have a resume, but not the actual city application. So, we'll have to ask you separately.
Is there a reason you didn't fill it out?
It was something that I was,
Speak into the mic.
I don't know.
It was something that I was asked to do kind of last minute, and honestly, I totally forgot there was an application for it, because in the past it has been a resume and a letter of interest, and so I honestly totally forgot about it. I just threw it in last minute, and that was why. It wasn't a deliberate act.
If you can, try to stick it for me, because it doesn't make Sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I got just a general question that you guys can just kind of answer one by one if you want. Last year as a city, we signed on to be a Respect Minnesota city, which just kind of entailed that discussions, disagreements, anything to do with the city, we as council members will respect each other and how we go about it, and just be civil adults. Would you individually be willing to sign on the Respect Minnesota pledge as well? Just kind of anybody, yeah,
start at the end of the list.
Yeah, I'd like to work with the city, I'd like to see more businesses in the city, and I'd like to see the council get along so there's no bickering and arguing and all that stuff to make everybody happy.
So then you'd be willing to sign that pledge, the Respect Minnesota pledge?
Yep.
Yes, I would, absolutely. Group,
Of course.
and Evan.
So as far as so what I heard, Bob and Kirby, sounded good. And, if there's motions and discussions at the end of it, you just, when you vote, how you feel, but you can still be civil. But without actually reading the document, I can't say for sure. But just from what I heard, I would agree with.
During the last Meet the Candidates, as you all know, that was a little over a year ago. I think all of you attended, well, Evan, you're new to us. But the other three of you guys attended, and one of the main questions was, if you're not elected, what are you going to continue to do to represent the city and be involved in the city? So, start with Nikki this time. Okay.
Well, I was not elected, but I did join the Montrose Days Committee, became their vice president. I've been doing that ever since. So that's, helping out doing that. Still doing it, still plan on moving forward with it, so.
Well, at that meeting, I believe I remember saying that I continue to keep doing what I was doing, and I have. I'm still attending council meetings and other meetings, doing things as I'm asked within the city, working with the free meal, the community meal program. Just signed on with Deb to work with the census. So wherever someone feels that there's a need that I can help with, I'm there. So I just keep doing what I'm doing.
So as far as myself, not in the recent past, but I did help with the playground build at the elementary school. And then right now it's just more stuff with the school itself, which is, I guess you could say, is part of the city, but you can see the fire department's another part, so it all depends on that. So I got kids involved with the Bravo Strings program at the elementary school, so I'm showing up with that each morning. And I have helped with some of the fundraisers that they've done there, and including when they've run the concession stands for the, I can't remember what the, was it for the, they run the concession stands for, what was the community theater group or something? So I've gone there and run that. This year they did because they had a hard time getting enough people to sign up. So I just more or less done things here or there. So, but mostly lately with the school.
What about you, what have you been doing since, the last election to continue to be involved in the city?
Well, I was on the council, and I was liaison for the fire department, and liaison on planning and zoning, and attended a few meetings and stuff. And worked with Highway 12 redevelopment, and planting trees and all that stuff out there, and watering them and taking care of stuff.
Okay. As most of you also know, that we meet the second and fourth Monday of every month. The second for sure, the fourth is workshops that are like typically at 3:30.
And usually one liaison assignment per person.
Right. So depending on what that is, but for sure, those 2 meetings a month are all of you available to attend them.
Yes.
Okay, Roy, I have a question for you. On your application, it asks you what you thought the 3 major problems were here in the city. And your second answer was working with government. What did you mean by that? What government?
Well, when I was at that meeting where we met the candidates here from Buffalo, like Bruce Anderson and Joe McDonald and stuff like that, we talked about different projects and stuff like that with engineering and all of that stuff. And he always told me, if you got any problems, call me and I'll see if I can help you work with the city to get things done.
Okay, the way it looks on your application was working with the government was a problem.
Well, I know Arnie Carlson when he was governor of Minnesota and stuff like that, and when he was the state auditor, when I lived in Waverly, we had 2 councilmen and the mayor were using grant money for different things. So I walked that whole town and I got the books audited in town and found out where this grant money was going, and the banker was related to one of them. That's how I got to know Arnie Carlson and stuff like that.
Okay, we're talking about now.
Government and working with people. I can't see people being lied to. I like to work with people and have good communication so problems can get solved.
And when we asked you what you thought the major assets of the city were, you said working with citizens. How is working with citizens an asset that Montrose has?
I know some citizens that wanted to put things in town here, like a subway and stuff like that, but it never ever did come back to the council to be discussed and stuff like that, and everything was put down in black and white and ready to go with that property owner up here on Highway 12, and never come back to the council to tell us what was going on or to work with anybody. And that's really got me confused and up in an uproar, because stuff wasn't getting done in the same way out there where XL Energy is out there. They wanted to put a mall in there, a pizza place and all that stuff along Highway 12 out there. But nobody could work with shingle bees, and the council knew nothing about it.
Okay, I guess I'm confused on working with citizens. You're kind of...
I like working with citizens. If they got problems, when I was mayor, they'd call me up, even on a Sunday and stuff, and I'd take the book and I'd go down and show them the rules and regulations and everything, and I got people thanking me to this day that I come with that book and show them what was to do with it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Like I said, we do have the applications here. I want to hear from you guys as to what you think it is, the roles and responsibilities of actually being a council member.
Is he registered?
Adam, you can go. I'm just going right down the line, each person, sorry.
Well, so I kept it fairly short in my application. I wrote they provide governance for the city and direction. And, they work with the city administrator who it establishes the rules and laws in the city and that. And it'd be valuable to the citizens to hear about what issues and concerns they have. And to some extent, provide direction or help provide direction to the staff, preferably through a city council meeting. There could be just some one-on-one discussion. Hey, what do you think about this? I've heard this, but that's kind of my general viewpoint of it. So it's just to help establish that.
There's a lot to your job. It's not just listening to your staff and keeping them happy. It's not just listening to the citizens and keeping them happy. There is research time, meeting time, being open to being persuaded in maybe your initial way of thought. If there's a large group that feels differently than you, there's so many parts and pieces to it. And it's a very large time commitment that I don't think people realize how much time is involved in what you guys do. Fortunately, I have that time available to me.
I think a big part of it is, the reason why I want to is because when we moved here, and I know I've said this before when I was running, is I want to be able to help shape the city for the future of my kids, everything. I think that working together as a council, being able to come up with decisions together is a huge part of it. And I'm willing and able to put in all the time that I need to help do that. Just kind of where I stand with that.
Greg?
Well, I'm interested in getting back on the city council because I like to work with people, get things done, and I got many hours in the day that I can work with people and be honest with people, and I don't believe in lying to people, so stuff can get done.
Yeah, you can ask what you want.
Good. Okay, Nicole, this is for Nicole. Nicole, you mentioned lack of business as a major problem in Montrose. What would you do to attract more business, and what kind of business?
Gosh, I don't know. I am still fairly new to this myself. I don't know the politics in trying to get businesses in here. I wish I did, but for example, I think a little library. I know before I said that too. I think that a little library, my kids would enjoy a library. I would enjoy the library. Stuff like that, even though I don't know how how or when that could even happen, but I would really like to know more about how to help do that and be a part of it.
Do you think that the citizens would be okay with having their levies raised for a library?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, like I said, I don't know like the numbers on it, I don't know any of the logistics on what, because this is just what I would personally throwing it out
Kind
there.
of like your wish list, huh?
Yeah, something that would be neat for the city, but I don't know how it would affect the city.
Sadly, we can't do that
Yeah.
because of Buffalo and Delano having major libraries. We're centrally located, so we'd love to.
See, and I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Learning stuff every day.
Yeah, and along those lines, Evan, you mentioned about you'd like to work to keep taxes low. And then you talked about focusing on park development. How would you balance those two? Because, whenever you develop parks, you need to get money from someplace.
I mean, some of it can be as simply as, like the ideas that came up were, so we had discussed that, as also talked about regional park and that, and also part of the other feedback that came back was making the existing parks have the amenities that they need, such as a biffy at each park, or shade for trees, put up in strategic spots there to be shade for the playground, so they can still use it. They wouldn't have to necessarily come all the way down to the yellow park. So I mean, there's always give and take with.
So you're talking about lower cost improvements, not necessarily
Yeah, I mean, there's
the big things.
The city recently got that equipment from Delano. I
Yeah.
don't know if that was free or not. But
Yeah.
some little sweat work there, and I don't want to say, hey, Public Works, you need to do all this and that. I mean, there's cost involved there, but I mean, at the same time, you can keep an eye on the budget and see what works and what doesn't work, or what the community's demanding. Sometimes communities, they want to see what things stay steady where they're at, or no tax increases at all, and then maybe fine drive development. I mean, we go to that Barton King Inspiration Park quite a bit.
Yeah.
So there's always little trade-offs there that you gotta kind of evaluate.
Okay. And then you had mentioned something along the fact of, let's see, it was on the, what section was it? You had scratched out problems and made it ideas, city ideas, on one item.
Correct.
I'll bet here, I just need to put my finger on it. I'd be interested to know what you think the three problems are. I mean, you answered ideas great. I would like you to answer the original question about what you think the three major problems are in the city.
I mean, if you come down to it, I mean, there's always concern about division and that, lack of fall through of citizens and that. I mean, large part, I couldn't find some glaring oversight that had been taking place. Whether, maybe some person being upset, like that was on the community group, that their sidewalk just got watered and now they got a notice for not having their sidewalk cleared. And there's always going to be little things like that should be looked at, and there might be some kind of change made for that. But as far as like something glaring, like sewer pipes collapsing in the road and that, there's that development out the west side of the town that is kind of defunct to some degree, or largely. I mean, so I guess you could maybe consider that some sort of major problem, even though it's not, as far as I remember, it wasn't hooked up to the city infrastructure. It can be corrected on that. But I guess one thing could be that, is there a lot of investment in years past? Maybe on the higher end, and projections of the number of citizens coming in and building houses in the community was maybe a little higher, the high end of where it would generally be expected. Could have cost some of that. But as far as things going on at this moment, that's kind of how I was going with that. I suppose First Street North, we all know that needs some work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of rambling to some degree, so maybe stop there. But.
I get it, thanks. Last but not least, Drew, What are your thoughts on social media as being an avenue for citizens to issue complaints and make comments in the city?
I don't think there's ever going to be anything that you can do to stop it. I think you have to find a way to use it constructively. Kirby's very good at that, actually, with replying to questions or comments and answering them in such a manner that things get shut down unless somebody's really just kind of jerk about it and they just want to keep going. But I don't think it's something you're going to get away from.
There's cause for concern for me with Pat and his negative comments. And what's to separate from the public thinking that you're sitting there right next to me and your views as a council person are being put forth to the public through that mechanism? How do you defend against that?
It's no different than if you work with a spouse at your place of employment. You're two different individuals. His opinions and my opinions are very different. Those of you that know us well know that we are two very different people. The same thing happens like Michelle. Her husband and her daughter, both of them express their opinion, but they are not her opinion. How I would handle that, quite honestly, if I was appointed, Pat will be told no more. Because there's a lot of time, let me tell you, I spare you from a lot of what he puts on there or wants to put on there.
Please tell them no more now. Well, I'm sure you can understand how public could, I got off of Facebook last July, right? So I hear it from other people about what's being posted, right? And it's a major issue.
That is the number one issue in town, quite honestly, perception.
The funny part is, Michelle and I were just at a League of Minnesota Cities conference, and one of the things they talked about was the use of social media. They said every city should have Facebook, Twitter, all the rest, Instagram, all the rest. I don't even know what half the names of them are. And it's like a lot of them have people hired full-time that manage that. I don't know how in the world we as a small city could manage something like that. So what I'm trying to say is that it's a major problem, One last question I had for you. A lot of times the city council has to work on very tedious and time-consuming things. I know you had a problem with the time that was spent on the signage thing, redoing all the sign regulations. But that's part of life, that's things we have to do, and that was all state mandated. We didn't really have a choice whether we wanted to do that or not. So, I understand you thought that there was a time waste, and probably everybody that worked on it thought that too, but we were forced to do that. So how will you deal with those types of tedious tasks that you have to do as a council member?
When it's something that's state mandated, you don't have an issue. You don't have a choice, you have to go with that. The issue, or thing, I guess the really big issue was not so much the amount of time, but some of the, how over-restrictive it was going to be with even like garage sale signs. Come on, really, how nanny state are we going to get? And that was really where my issue was not so much the time we were spending on it, but how precise and how far drilled down we're going to get into.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I got another one that'll, mine are pretty much going to just pertain to everybody, but we'll just can do it one at a time. We'll start with Roy. So you said before you've gotten calls from upset citizens, right?
Pardon?
You've gotten calls before from upset citizens, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, like I said, this is for everybody, so we'll go one at a time, but how would you go about handling upset citizens when they call you? And I'll tell you, it happens a lot more than you think, or you just get stopped, whether it's, I was at the beanbag tournament this last weekend, and I ended up in an hour-and-a-half conversation about someone having to shovel their sidewalk. So, just kind of how would you handle that when when they get upset about it, because people do, they take passion in their property and issues that are going on with it, and, you know, how do you handle somebody who's upset?
Which is sidewalk shoveling and stuff like that?
No, just in general, if someone calls you and
They
they're
usually
upset.
take the planning and zoning book with, and if people got problems with shoveling their sidewalk and can't shovel it, I'll take my snow blower and I'll go do it for them, but I'll help them. But I had a guy come to me at Sid Chatton thing down here last Sunday, and he says, you know, since I moved to town, he says, you're the only person that ever welcomed me to Montrose. And I thought that was a nice compliment. But I'll go out and help people if they can't move anything, or even help them move in their houses and stuff like that. And I won't argue with nobody, but if you got a problem with somebody, with a neighbor or something, I want to see what the problem is. Why are you arguing with this neighbor, and why ain't it getting done?
Nikki?
I would, I guess it would matter on what the situation was, but if it was something that they wanted to know about, you know, what the city's, just for example, budget for the city, why is this going to this or why is that going to that? I would obviously try to get the facts and then maybe come back to them with whatever answers. I don't like to talk with conviction about things I don't know. So if I can help resolve that, I will come back to them with an answer.
It does happen. When I was on Park and Rec, it happened. Generally, the best course of action I found was to let them vent or say their piece if they're upset. The things you can agree with, you can agree with. But generally it was, why don't you come and talk to council, or why don't you come and talk at the meeting, or, you know, whatever was the appropriate venue, so that we can address it and take care of the issue. If they were not willing to come, I'll listen to you, but if you're not willing to do the work to take care of the action, there's not a whole lot we can do.
Ed?
I mean, I'd say a big part is listening to the citizens. Some of it is just them wanting to get feedback or have their voice heard. Now, sometimes there might be an issue that you might need to follow up with, or you might need to attract them to staff to discuss. I mean, if it's something that's coming up in more places than one, there might be something the council would need to address. You're not necessarily going to have an answer they want to hear also. I mean, I had a discussion with Congressman Emmer about a spending bill that's going through Congress, and he told me his standpoint, but then he also told me, he's like, this is probably what's going to take place. He's like, I can call you and talk to you about it if you want. So he's, I mean, it's something like that. I told him he didn't need to waste his time, but I just wanted to discuss with him in that moment. That was good enough for me.
Okay, I have one more question for all of you. This is I think it should be an easy one. What do you think you can personally learn from being a city official? I will start with you.
Well, yeah, it's kind of a big net to cast there. I mean, one could be communicating, networking with the citizens and with your fellow council members, learning how to work within the bounds of being on a committee. I mean, there's always, you can come up with any kind of sayings about how committees work, but and that's part of being on these other committees I've been on, the CD6, GOP, board, and that you learn how to work through those issues, and discuss the issues, and, you know, make different decisions to move your project or process forward. Sorry, I didn't have anything better than that.
I think I would, get to know you guys more than how I do. I get to know you at a deeper, different level, which would be beneficial. Each of you have a life experience that could be imparted that is separate from council, just good life learning. From a professional or council point of view, one of the things that I'm very good at working with compromise and working with people and not getting upset or anything until you can't reach a compromise. And I think that is the thing that I probably would learn most here, because things are always, it seems like, are a 3-2 split. And being on the two side would require being able to continue to move along and work well without holding a grudge or being angry. And that would be the biggest win in working in this group, would be to learn to manage that well.
Nicole?
I would say what I would take from it is being able to, I guess, work with the community. Being able to be on the inside of what you guys are doing every day, every month. And that, to me, I think is a huge achievement to be able to do that and to be able to work with people to come to a compromise or whatever to help deal with city issues and stuff. So I think I would take away just being able to be one of those people that help get things done is a lot for me.
Okay, Roy?
I like working with people, and when Sean was our maintenance engineer and stuff like that, he'd come and ask me questions and problems that they had with trucks and tractors and stuff like that, and I recommended problems to him and stuff like that. And there are a few problems with City Hall and stuff like that. I went up to see if the problems could be solved and work with people and get things done so there's no bickering and fighting and all that stuff.
Can everybody just take a pause for a second, please?
One other question that I have, I know you guys kind of talked about this a little bit, but I'm looking at these and how would you help improve council communication? As it's been mentioned, there's some 3-2 splits and there's a little, we kind of get a little passionate, I should say, up here. That's a nice way to put it, yep. So how would you guys help fix the communication and the respect amongst council? Go ahead, Boo.
I kind of personally answered that already.
Right.
I'm never going to be a giver. A lot of times people will guess how Tom's going to vote or Kirby's going to vote or whatever. Being part of this group and part of the communication is having a good discussion. There are many avenues to working well. Email, phone, face-to-face, it all comes back to just being open to exchange ideas without getting overly passionate or offensive. I think that's really what this group needs is one really good neutral, so that it can stay less heated.
All right, Evan.
Well, how to fix communication, that's kind of a tough one. I mean, part of that could be, reminds me of the saying, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, so maybe try to listen twice as much as you speak. I'm not saying I'm necessarily good at that. Also, I think part of it is, there's another saying about still sharpening steel. Part of it is, you sit here discussion, I might have one viewpoint on something already, but then Kirby or Lloyd or the other ones bring up another viewpoint on it, and I have another aspect or frame of reference to discuss it. And, it's just something that evolves, but maybe a big part is also being respectful too. So.
Right.
Well, I was at this one meeting on planning and zoning and stuff like that, and we sat there for about 3 hours, 3.5 hours, and nothing was, seemed like it was getting done. And we had a guy from planning and zoning that worked in the courthouse and stuff like that. And finally, I just said, this has got to come to an end. It's getting old. Everybody's sitting there, talk. And finally, I discussed a few things. Planning and zoning was there, the council was there, and everybody was there from City Hall and everything. And finally, they discussed everything, and it all got settled with less than half an hour. There was no more bickering, no nothing more.
I, for one, am a fan of the team building exercises. Don't know if you guys do that or not. I love them. So, I don't know, starting there, otherwise, kind of rolling off what Evan said, it's about listening. And I think a lot of people talk before they listen to anything that anybody's really saying. So they might just take that away from that. But, team building exercises?
Sorry. I'm a large body, I don't trust any of you to catch me if I fall backwards, so.
All right, does anybody else have any more questions?
So outside of just the council meetings, as Tom and Michelle have mentioned already, that the League of Minnesota Cities, which they offer a lot of trainings, and so a lot of other towns go there, and they have people from everywhere in Minnesota that show up to these trainings. Would joining the council, would you be willing to go to those? I mean, since I got elected, I went last year, I'm going next month. Tom's gone both times, Michelle's gone, I think, every year since she's been on it. There's just a lot to learn. Would you be willing to go to those trainings and just take in and absorb what they have to say?
And just let me tell you that the city does budget for that, so the city does pay for that. You don't have to pay for that.
And usually, just to clarify on that too, like the ones that me and Tom just went to, it was Friday, Saturday, all day Friday, half a Saturday. I did end up staying, Tom did go home because we were only in Plymouth, but you are going to Brainerd.
Yep.
So, it's a weekend thing. Just so you guys are aware, they have the one in February, the annual one comes up.
Then they have one, June or July.
Yeah.
But usually every year they have one for newly appointed people or elected, and it's just a lot of opportunities. So just kind of, we could start with Evan and go down the line of just if you'd be willing to do more trainings and more learning.
Well, first thing that crossed my mind, is there something similar for the city administrators?
Yes.
Is there the ones that are doing this full-time, all day, every day? So,
This is
And they go.
they go to clerk conferences yearly.
no kidding.
Yep.
And then the League of Minnesota Cities has an annual conference for administration staff as well as city council in June every year. And that's a really good conference.
Yeah, I definitely see things like that as important and helpful, because they have different topics to cover, such as open meeting laws and what have you. I mean, I can't think of many more examples right now. Personally, in the past, I have read through the handbook for Minnesota cities. Gets pretty lengthy, especially when you get to the back part, and it starts to get into planning and zoning kind of stuff.
I'll tell you,
Insomniac is interesting.
their discussions on budgeting, riveting. Yeah, it's great, yeah.
That, I would actually find that kind of interesting.
Oh, not when they don't have a personality, you wouldn't.
This monotone, maybe I need a pillow.
That's what they do, they monotone it.
They should call it a board meeting.
Yeah.
And you need to bring a pillow, a blanket kind of thing, right? So that's definitely things that are helpful, because they can be presenting things that are timely or coming up now, or changes in the legislature that maybe they know about. And then just go back to the communication thing, just going off of one thing that Nicole was saying was some training I took for work recently was talking about within the team also, like a big part is conflict resolution, because there's always competing agendas or competing priorities. Like, so the administrator will have a priority with city attorney or public works, you know, and they gotta kind of work through those things. So kind of segueing back to that.
And just so all of you know, in the past, they have done team building with the council itself. And we did budget for that, to do something like that again this year. And then they have someone come in and you just work on things. So we're gonna get back into that.
I think it would be wonderful to go to. I think there's things to learn, but the networking, I think, might be invaluable. And I have heard, I believe, and I'm not sure if this is 100% correct, that they also have what would be deemed as distance learning that they have available online. And that, as you can tell by my resume, I'm very big on. I think that would be a wonderful resource.
Yeah, they have webinars lead.
Yes.
Nikki?
Absolutely. Any opportunity I have to learn to get more knowledgeable in all the aspects of being a city council member, I would definitely do it.
Roy?
I love going to the mayor conventions down there. We meet a lot of interesting people. We discuss a lot of things. Really interesting with some people in some of these towns around there.
Anything else from anybody?
Sure, I'll ask another one. How, obviously, after this is all said and done, there's 4 of you and there's only 1 spot. So how are the other 3 going to, how are you gonna handle if you don't get appointed? You know, are you gonna go to Facebook or call City Hall and complain to Deb that you didn't get on, or go to Facebook or Nextdoor and write long paragraphs about how we're all incompetent and our heads are somewhere where the sun doesn't shine, or just, you know, are you gonna go about your business and keep working to make Montrose better? So I could start with Roy.
Well, why bicker about it? Election time's coming up and everything. When I was on the council, there was other things I discussed with some people on different things that should be done in town here, and I'd like to stay on that trend to get some of this stuff done in this town.
If I'm not chosen, I still plan on doing what I'm doing for the city that I can, helping the city in the way that I can right now, and that's still Montrose Days. So pour a lot into that. November is coming up and I am running, so that'll be my next opportunity to try again.
Brew?
Well, you can see from my history, because I have done this before, when Ben was appointed. And I think actually when Roy ended up getting appointed interim, and have also run for office. And I still keep coming back, and I still keep doing what I'm doing, and I still support you guys as much as I can.
Evan?
So I think a big part is just in general life is acceptance. I mean, it is what it is, and you go around, you know, I mean, if you're running for a city council spot, you're saying you want to build on working together and, you know, civility and what have you, and then you leave here and then you go on social media and then start throwing stuff around. I mean, it's definitely not productive, especially if part of it is we want to, you know, make Montrose a better community. I mean, there's, you can say all kinds of things, and at the end of the day, you know, you want to accept the decision that took place here. But as far as being in the city, like, I didn't think of my question earlier, but like, past years I've worked at the fish fry, and this last year I did the Secret Santa, so I just continue doing those kinds of things here and there.
That's all I got.
Good.
Any discussion amongst the council?
Did any of you have any questions for the city council?
And I'd just like to mention when I was mayor down here, I saved the city over $800,000 with this property off north of town out here when I got the Army Corps of Engineers in town to save us money to get things done.
And Mr. Johnson had no questions, I find that curious.
What's
You
that?
gonna ask me?
No, she's wondering why you didn't have any questions.
Yeah, you had no
Because everybody
questions.
else has answered the same ones, and I could get personal, but we're not supposed to do that, so.
Do you guys have any questions for us?
I think I'm okay.
Well, as far as, I mean, I don't have questions, but I do got something to say about these candidates sitting here. I'll say that with the laugh, so hopefully I'm not making anyone nervous, but I think all of them got great qualities. I've known Brew and Roy for many, many years, and appreciate the input and decisions and that both of them have brought, like Roy with the city, or the Army Corps of Engineers and that, and Brew and Nicole, who I just met tonight. Nice to meet Nicole.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, they all have good qualities. So Nicole's husband's on the fire department.
Yes. Okay. Council, anything? We have a decision, a motion. Do we want to make a decision?
Well, it's either that or we're kicking the can down again for another month of doing this, and we could sit here and talk all night. I'm free, so I don't know. It's kind of tough. You sit there and you think about it of filling a spot on the council, and you know, and Deb gave us these stats of the last election, and I just keep looking at it, thinking that maybe we should just trust the citizens and go with the next highest vote getter in the last election, because what would the citizens of Montrose want? Who would they want to be on the council? What would they want done in the city? And according to these results, they had the next best person already in mind. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I think we got to go based on what's best for Montrose. And I mean, if I had to pick between these four, I don't know if I could sit there and pick. We'd need a four-sided coin to flip and figure it out, but.
That wasn't, sorry.
No.
That was one of the questions, because I did put this, we put the agenda on the politics page, and one of the questions was, how does this work and all that? So I answered the question that we have the appointment open, and one resident said, why is the council choosing? Why don't the citizens get a vote? And the citizens did get a vote a little over a year ago. So as Kirby said, it's kind of how we've done it in the past. I mean, we can take it upon the interview process, everything, just to kind of get a feel for everybody, what they are wanting and why they're doing what they're doing. So if there's any discussion from council at all.
No, they're not all on here. Evan isn't on here.
Well, that's because Evan didn't run.
Right.
So he couldn't be on if he didn't
No,
run.
but
Right.
I mean, you don't have to run in order to be on the council.
For sure, right,
You should
agreed.
go by what's best qualified.
But what she's saying, Lloyd, is that.
I know what she's
the public
saying.
already voted who they thought was the best qualified.
Yeah, of these ones,
Right.
but not these four.
Well, three of them are there, that are here.
Yeah.
Evan sadly didn't run for council, so.
And they will have another opportunity come November. I was thinking along the same lines Kirby was thinking, just going by what the public wanted. I don't know if there's any other fair way to do it.
So is there a motion then?
I'll make a motion to appoint Nicole Landgraf to the Montrose City Council.
And I'll second.
Okay, Kirby,
Yes.
I will vote aye, Lloyd,
No.
and Tom.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-1. Nicole, you are officially a city council member. So basically our meeting is done tonight. So in February, you will take the oath of office. All information will get over to Deb. She'll get all contact information from you so that you can.
If you want to stop in sometime, just let me know when I set something up.
Yep. So February 10th, I think, is our next meeting.
Yep.
So, yes, that's when you'll be here. So, I do want to take the time to thank each of you for coming and putting your interest, and we hope to see you involved in the community.
And running for council again this year. I mean, citizens will have a tough choice if you guys all decide to run.
Yeah, we all made valid comments and good points, so.
All All right, so the next thing we just have to talk about is the upcoming meetings, which is Park and Rec on February 6th. City Council, as I mentioned, is February 10th. Planning and Zoning is February 12th, and the next council workshop is February 24th. So, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Yes.
Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Okay, good to see you. Thanks.
So, Mr. Fireman. Mr. Fireman. We've been wondering at City Hall, are they selling tickets ahead of time to dinner on Saturday night, or they
Yes, we
not?
are.
You are?
We are,
Okay.
yep.
Where do you have to go?
Contacted Andrew Love Fire guys.
Okay.
Running around. Actually, I have them on me right now if you wanted some. They're back from home. But yes, stop us at the, if you see guys sitting at the apartment, like,
Okay.
yeah, come out and just see one of my cases or whatever. We all got